I thought I'd do one more video. I'm not going to be commenting on commenters anymore. There hasn't been one in 10 years of, about 7 or 8 years of doing this, that there hasn't been hatred towards me. I grew up with this kind of hatred all through the school system. My mother was on welfare, but she came from a very wealthy family. My grandmother loved her very much and was by her side and defended her repeatedly. She knows a lot of people up where I come from. So I faced this kind of harassment and discrimination all through grade school, all through high school. I was denied certain things that I qualified for, the honor society, the theater group, majorettes. I was a good dancer. I took ballet. I was an artist. I was told I couldn't sing after my mother went with this boyfriend, Bud. But his daughter, of course, was the singer, Bonnie. And there's been numerous incidences like this. I was ripped out of ballet. I was continually humiliated all through school, told I was stupid, told I wouldn't amount to anything, even though my grades were good. It was amazing with the amount of times we moved with my mother and all her beautiful things. It was a joke. My poor grandmother was beside herself at what was going on, but they attacked my grandmother repeatedly. She's the only one I had in my life. They attacked me at my graduation party. But these are the kind of people that'll smile at your face and then behind your back do the most despicable, vicious things. And they all knew me as a child. So when I was lured back to Amsterdam, they set up my marriage. And they're, of course, the solid middle class. The cops, the teachers, the nurses, the correction officers that tell us how superior and great they are. And they band together like thugs. And I've known these people since I was 5 years old, and I moved into the neighborhood, and it's been absolute hell. But you try to go on. People tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. As you can see here, this has been, I am 60 years old now. Well, 61, but I'm just going to, for the sake of argument, say 60. And this is what I'm left with after housefuls of furniture, after sacrifices that I won't even begin to get into on this video. But suffice to say, you can see all the haters. And I left them there. There's even more because in the beginning it was so hurtful, I just blocked them. But now I leave them because I want survivors and I want the real professionals that eventually look and be horrified at the way people are treating when you go for help. And I didn't even need help. I needed my rightful assets given to me that I rightfully earned. But that's what the underclass can't expect from our court system. We can't expect from police officers. We can't expect from nurses, let alone work in these places. I was continually denied employment from every single local company that I applied for. You know why? So they could laugh and joke at Christmas parties, brag about their ski trips, and tell me they couldn't understand why I couldn't get a job locally, why I had to drive an hour to here, Albany, and then be harassed by doctors, engineers, lawyers, photographers, you name it, I worked for the company, okay? Continually, well, it's not working out, even though I did 3 times the work. And my work, I will stand and I will challenge any one of these people. Because I could still sit at the computer. I was going to be certified in IT, but they wouldn't let me do that either over at FM Fulton Montgomery Community College. I applied numerous times at Albany State, finding out half my family went there, and they lied about me. They wouldn't even acknowledge that I went to Albany State. Numerous teachers, principals. Okay, this is what we face when somebody makes it out of the underclass. And I don't want to make this a whole thing about classism because I don't think it's totally about that. It's about this misogyny against women, amongst other things. And I will leave it to the professionals to take my lived story and turn it into something presentable so these people can understand, because obviously they don't have no compassion or empathy, which is what people should have when we give them these positions. And we guarantee everything. And all they have to do is show up and breathe a lot of times, and they get promoted. And they get accolades and they get the hero worship. And I didn't care. I went through all these years telling them how great they were, because it was like a calling, and I had a lot of respect for it because I was just, a communications person. I was just an artist. So don't bother posting any more of your comments, because everybody can see how hateful you are. And we can see how you're all crying now because this administration is clearing out some of these agencies, rightly so. And it's kind of interesting that someone like me, that they told me I was such a lefty lunatic, which is another lie, and all these other name-calling things, because, I grew up a Jehovah's Witness with my godmothers, so they're kind of not involved with governmental affairs to begin with. So we can get into the spiritual abuse too, but there's so many things to talk about because you're not supposed to move ahead. Then we have people now coming from other countries also wanting to move ahead and be part of the American dream, and these thugs continue this in our rural communities, in our larger communities, story after story. And it was the same thing for me all my life. And here I am, 60 years old, tried my hardest not to be involved with law enforcement, not to be in trouble, to be a role model for my family and younger people in my family that you had hope, like Gloria Steinem, Helen Gurley Brown, Ann Sexton, some of these other women, Frances Farmer, that I grew up reading and admiring and wanting to be like, that I would have a chance, that I could go to college, like my grandmother told me, that I could be educated and work and be okay and put a roof over my head. And every single step of the way, these thugs get together and deliberately harass and condemn and mob and sexually assault and sexually harass and rape, pillage, and plunder to protect what is theirs. Thugs, it's thuggery. And I'm not anti-labor, I'm not anti-union, but it has to stop. So don't expect me to answer any more of your horrible, rotten comments. Okay, but I will continue to speak out, and I will ask for justice in this, because after all these people, somebody in Amsterdam should do their job. It needs an outside investigation, because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one whose life was cut short because these people are allowed to continue.